Again, welcome to another episode of Class Books from Rashad. Let's get into the Bible story time. Um, 1 Kings chapter 17, the life of spirit story about. Let's get into verse 1. It says, Now Elijah the Tishbite and the Tishbe in Gilead said to Ahab, As the Lord, the God of Israel, lives, whom I serve, there will not be neither dew nor rain the next few years except at my word. Elijah was a prophet in the northern kingdom during the reigns of Ahab. His son Hezekiah, the name Elijah, meaning the Lord is my God, represents the unshakable conviction of Elijah's life. The principal narratives about his life are found in 1 Kings chapter 17, I believe 18 and 19, those are chapters. Chapter 21, verse 17 to 29, and 2 Kings chapter 1, I believe chapter 1 and 2. Now, Elijah's life centered around the conflict between the worship of the Lord and the worship of Baal. His mission was to awaken the Israelites to their apostasy, to call them back to loyalty to the God of Israel. Elijah was a restorer, a reformer who sought to reestablish the covenant. The Old Testament ends with the prophecy that Elijah would appear again for that great, dreadful day of the Lord when he comes. This prophecy was partially fulfilled in the appearance of John the Baptist. It may have a future fulfillment before Christ's return. Elijah's unwavering devotion to God and his covenant makes him forever both an example of faith, courage, and loyalty to God in the face of intense opposition, persecution, an example of faithful persistence opposing false religion and false prophets. Now we're going to go to the next verse. In verse 1, the same verse, neither dew nor rain. That means, as God's messenger, Elijah spoke a word of the judgment from the Lord against disobedient Israel. God will withhold rain for 3.5 years. This word of judgment also mocked Baal from Baal worshippers. Leave. He controlled rain, was responsible for abundant crops. The New Testament states that this drought in Israel came as a result of Elijah's earnest prayers. Verse 4, it says, You will drink from the brook, and I have ordered the ravens to feed you there. Ordered the ravens to feed you there. God sustained Elijah at the Kerith raven because he had stood with God against the people's apostasy. As Elijah had borne God's burden, the Lord would now bear his burden. The brook dried up. Let's get to verse 7. Sometime later, the brook dried up because there had been no rain in the land. Then the word of the Lord came to him. The brook dried up. When the brook dried up, God directed Elijah to go to a pagan territory inhabited by Baal worshippers. There, God provided for Elijah through a poor widow. The experience further strengthened Elijah's confidence in God's providence. Sometimes adversity occurs even though we are in God's will. Through such experience, He may help us in a different and greater way than we had expected. Verse 15. She went away and did as Elijah had told her. So there was food every day for Elijah, for the woman and her family. There was food every day. The needs and misery of a poor widow were not insignificant to God. He sent Elijah to strengthen her faith, give material blessings at a time when she felt all was lost. So the widow's faith in God and his word from the prophet Elijah led her to exchange the certain, the uncertain, seen for the unseen. The believing widow not only received God's prophecy, God's prophet, material blessing, but also a spiritual blessing. In verse 17, sometime later, the son of the woman who owned the house became ill. He grew worse and worse and finally stopped breathing. So the son stopped breathing means we confront here one of life's perplexing mysteries. At the very time God was miraculously providing flour and oil, trouble and sorrow occurred. Sometimes adversity comes to those who are doing God's will, who are actively involved in the work of his kingdom. Verse 22, the Lord heard Elijah's cry, and the boy's life returned to him. And he believed, he lived. The Lord heard Elijah's cry, and it says God restored the boy to life in answer to Elijah's prayer. This is the first instance recorded in the Bible of someone being raised from the dead. The three miracles listed in chapter 17 strikingly manifested God's glory and love, and they demonstrate to Elijah that the woman trust that in the midst of tragic circumstances, God's power and love are active on behalf of those who love Him and are called according to His purpose. All right, so that's it. I'll be in chapter 18 tomorrow in First Kings from the Life Spirit Study Bible. Until then, talk to you tomorrow.